Hi, I'm Phil Jones. Now you can actually see me. You can actually see my camera. I'm sitting here in my theater next to my rack of Marantz. So we want to take some time and spend an entire hour on Roon, going through the interface, answering some of your questions, and getting into more deep detail. Some of the stuff that I'm going to be talking about may only be available in America at this time, such as some of the music services, but the overall idea of how Roon works will translate regardless of where you are globally. So we're going to take some time and go through this entire interface. So the main reason why Roon even exists is the fact that I have thousands and thousands and thousands of music files on my big media PC. All sorts of high-res files, MP3s, all sorts of stuff. But the way that you interact with that music is basically just a little piece of writing in a folder in a computer file. So it really doesn't have that emotional attachment that we used to have. I remember when I was younger and I was a young guy, because I'm old, you see the gray right there. When we would go out to buy a new record or a new CD, we would take the play the disc or the whatever kind of disc we're talking about, and we would read the cover liners about who played with that particular person, who was the drummer, who was the producer. There was this additional attachment to music, and it helped you discover new people. You find out, wow, I really like this song, and it was produced by this person, while my other favorite song was also produced by this person. So let me see what else this particular producer has done, because maybe I will like that too. It allowed you to explore all of the different types of music that were available. But now, most of the time, all you get is this file structure. That's it. So you really don't get that emotional attachment that you used to have. So the purpose of Roon is to make that interface, your interaction with your content, far more visual. Makes it things that you can explore while you're listening about artists and all the different people that make the great music that you are into. Um, and it looks really, really good, and it gives you the ability to do a couple of things. The first thing is I have a bunch of music on my PC, but I also have a couple of streaming services, and it allows me to consolidate all of that stuff into one location. So let's take a look at it real quick. This is my iPad, and my iPad is what I use for my controller. The Roon program runs on a controller, which could be your iPad, your smartphone, your laptop, or your PC. And there's also another program that runs called the Roon Core. The Roon Core is what consolidates everything to make sure that everything you need to listen to, it organizes it for you. But I control it from my iPad. So this is my iPad. So when I go into this thing, the first thing you're going to see is a overview page. And the overview page basically looks at all of the things that my catalog, my interest. So you see it says I have about 3,000 tracks from 174 artists. And it looks at what I've played from my library as well as streaming services, and it consolidates kind of a library. In addition to that, it also allows me to explore my music services, two of the music services. So in the US, I have Qobuz and Tidal. And you can see right above the after hours weekend, you'll see kind of looks like a little T. That tells me that when I played that, I actually played it off of Tidal. And of course, I can go in and I can explore different artists, different genre, and also see what are cool new selections on music services that are connected, which currently are Qobuz and Tidal. Now, there's other ways you can explore music. Say I'm in the mood for some new R&B. I can go in and I can look around this collection of R&B music, and I can pick a band. Like say I pick Brand New Heavies. So when I hit Brand New Heavies, that's an R&B band out of England, and it talks about who is the artist, who were the singers, and everything about that particular band. And if I'm curious, I can click on one of those artists, like James Brown or one of their influences, and I can learn more. So it's like the old days of you reading your cover art, and you can go in and explore. Then what happens is I can see all of the albums. So I currently have 2 albums in my collection. But if I want a Brand New Heavy song, I just ask for it. And it will look, if you look here, it also shows me all of the Brand New Heavies albums that are available on the streaming services. So I can play something from my collection, or I can just say, I want to hear this song from the brand new heavies. As a consumer, as a user, I don't care where it comes from. All of these services are at least CD quality, so the quality is exceptional, and so I can easily look at all of the music that interests me, and it's all consolidated in one location. I don't have to go from one application to another. If I really want to explore, I can go to what's called Discover. And Discover, think of Discover as a custom made online magazine based on my listening preferences. So I can go in here and I can explore all of the different types of artists and albums based on what I've listened to and what is in my personal collection. So it really does add another level of integration and another level of interaction with your music. It adds that layer of emotion that we used to have when we had physical content. So that's the main thing. Compared to a normal music server, the amount of rich additional graphics, imagery is much, much greater than what you normally see. So like I said, it's a very visual way to search. My personal library by genre, I can discover new things. In order for Roon to work, there's three parts to a Roon system. The core. The core can be a computer, a NAS drive, or a third-party music server. And those devices are going to run with basically what's called a Roon core software. And that is where it organizes all of the content. So it wants to know where your music is located and what services do you have rights to on the services that are available. And it will consolidate all of the material and act like a traffic cop to send the particular file to the particular room or device you want it to go to. The control is how you control your particular system. How do I want, so that could be, like I said, an iPad or a smart device or a PC. And of course, the output is basically the thing that is playing it back. So either any Roon tested or Roon ready device, whether that's a wireless speaker, another computer, a media player, and a receiver, all of those things are different output devices. If I go to my menu system on my computer here, and I go down to Roon, you can use one laptop to be both your server, your Roon core, as well as your Roon controller. So if I go here, you'll see that I have an app Roon, which is the controller, and Roon server, which is the core. So I can use the same PC to do both things. I can have the beautiful interface on my PC, and at the same time, that PC can also be the server. So here is actually the PC interface as we bring it up right here. So the PC interface is very similar to the one you see on the iPad. It's just, oh, by the way, the background is black because you have the option of choosing between a light background and a dark background. But all of the different ways to explore that I showed you on the iPad is also available right here using this particular interface. So I have a core, and my core is in that media PC that's right there. The big thing about a core is the core has to be on and running the software whenever you are using Roon. So I just restarted my computer, and when I restarted my computer, the core software did not restart. So I had to go back in and double click on the Roon server software to fire up the core so all of my controllers could work to tell my players or my output devices what to play. So the one thing you have to remember is the core always has to be running. So in my application, I'm talking to you using my laptop, and the menu you're seeing that I showed you earlier is on my laptop while the core is running on the PC behind me. So I'm blessed enough to have two PCs. So that's one thing you have to think about is you have to have that running at all times. Once you set up a device, you're going to have to tell it where your information goes. Oh, by the way, before we get into that, so we talked about the Discover, which was help you discover new types of music. The other thing too is because it's consolidating all of my music services and my personal content, there's a direct link to the music services right here. So if I want to go directly to those music services, I can go there. If I go to something like Tidal, same thing. Here are all of the music services. The other thing that's kind of neat, all of the playlists that are available on Tidal that you would normally see. One thing that's really nice is using my HEOS app along the way. I use a lot of Tidal, and I set up a whole bunch of different playlists using Tidal on my smartphone as I travel and at different trade shows and events. Those different playlists actually will appear in the ROON under the ROON menu system. Here's a tip for you. If I set up a playlist on Tidal or on the other music service, or I set up a playlist, like for example, Tidal, if I set up the playlist in the Tidal app or in my HEOS app, it will show in ROON. If I set up a playlist in ROON, it will not show up in my HEOS app or on my Tidal. So that's something that I want you guys to get to think about. Jim, is there any questions? Looks like my little blinking question thing is up.
Nope, just an observation from Sean saying that it sounds very similar to Plex
Yes,
insofar
it
as
is.
it's a server-client arrangement.
Yes, he is correct. I use Plex for in that reason why that PC was set up is it's a way for me to organize all of my music, my movies and photos under Plex. So I use Plex for that particular. That is a free movie and content solution, and it tries to go out and add a more rich content. So it's very similar to that, except for this is focused primarily on music, and Plex is it will do music, but its real strength is video. So when I go into the menu, I have two devices that I can use for a core. So first thing is I have that big media PC behind me. But when I travel, and I'm at a trade show, I want to use my laptop to as the core as we run demos at a trade show. So what I can do is I can disconnect the media room PC, and then I can run the core software on this laptop and turn it into the core. Each license is good for one core, okay? If I want to have the laptop always connected as a core when I travel, plus I want the media PC to always be on so my wife can use it as a core, I would need two licenses, okay? So keep that in mind. So a core license is good for, a license is good for one core at a time, but you can move that license from core to core to core, but only one core can be active at one time, okay? So that's one thing I want to point out. Some other things. Once you set up the core, it's going to want to know where are your files located. And I can go in, and if you have multiple locations, you put those multiple folders in. So say you have a folder full of CD quality and a folder full of high res files, you can actually put those folders in. If there's one or two folders, that's fine. You would put them in. If those folders on a NAS drive or on a secondary hard drive, you can that's connected to the PC. It just needs to know where is your music, so I can go out and add all of and see what you are looking at, what you own, and help build that personalized library for you. The next thing is what services do you have, and I put in my two passwords. The next thing is going to ask you is things like, what do you want to name your core? But I can make it a dark theme, I can make it a light theme, I can do whatever I want to that particular thing. How do you want to interact with the particular device? Some other things here that we want to talk about is audio. This is where you have all of your different devices. So the core says, okay, which devices do you want to use as output devices? I have a lot of times a PC will have multiple output devices. Like for example, my laptop is listed as 5 different things. And then you would pick one of these as the default and you would enable one of those. So when I said I want to play something on my my work laptop, I can grab my iPad, say I want to play Bob Marley on my work laptop, and when my work laptop starts playing, it will pick one of these outputs. If you look here, the core, of course, like I said, can also be a player. So the core I labeled Media PC. If I continue down, you'll see, well, here's all the Roon stuff. And first thing, my desktop, there's a dragonfly there. If I click on the dragonfly, device setup, depending on the device, it has different levels that it can support via Roon. Most PCs and most things, and these dragonflies can support it basically runs a version of their software, which is called RAT. And it asks you what type of service do you want? Do you want to use MQA, which is, and how do you want to use it? I can go in here and it'll ask you things such as how high of a sampling rate do you want? How many, what quality are you looking for? And I can go in and make those adjustments here. The next thing that you can do, if you look here, if I scroll down, you'll see there's my iPad. So literally I can start it on my laptop and hear it on my iPad if I had headphones plugged in. If I continue down, there's Roon Ready and Roon Tested devices. We'll talk a little bit more about Roon Ready and Roon Tested in a minute, but you'll see that my Oppo player is Roon Ready. Roon Ready, like I said, runs their program. So if you look here, I can go in here and it's available for MQA, and I have all of my different capabilities that are available because it's running the Roon Ready or their operating system. So big thing about that Oppo Blu-ray player, it has to be turned on. Even when I have it set to standby, if it's turned off, it will not show up here. In my house, I have an AV8805. And so back behind me, there's an AV8805, and right below it is a Roon Blu-ray player. So I have 2 options. I can use my AV8805 and access the music directly into the AVR, into the AV Pre-Pro using AirPlay 2, which is CD quality. Or because the Oppo Blu-ray player is right below it, I could label that Oppo Blu-ray player theater high res, and I can label my AV8805 theater CD. And if I say I want to play theater high res, the Oppo Blu-ray player will play it, and then I just turn my receiver to the Blu-ray option. So because there are 2 devices in that rack, I have both options available: the internal of the Blu-ray of the receiver, and the external of the Oppo Blu-ray player. So that's kind of neat. Most of the time, I like to use the AV8805 because the volume control is actual physical volume control. If I try to use the Oppo to control the volume, I'm messing with the bits that are in the audio signal. So even though it's a higher res to start, I'm messing with how those bits are being related to reduce the volume or the amplitude, and it's actually better just to leave it alone. Okay. As I move down, you'll see that there's a lot of Roon tested devices. Roon tested devices means that Roon has worked with the manufacturer to test it to ensure that those devices are fully compatible with the Roon interface. So as I was saying, if you look, all of these devices, you'll see multiple devices that are not enabled because I'm not using them for as playback devices. That way, because I didn't enable everything, it's very easy for me to find the zones and the rooms that I want to play instead of having a bunch of things. And there's 5 things on my laptop. I only want to use one of the outputs, so why have all 5 enabled? It just makes it cluttered and hard to find. There's a couple of cool things about this that I really, really like. I still use both my HEOS app and my Roon app, and we'll talk about the advantages of both a little later. But one of the things that I really like about this particular service is a lot of times if I was playing something, So say I pick something. We'll go back here and we will start with some, so say I want to go in and I want my guest room to play. And I'm playing music in my guest room. So say I'm playing music in my guest room and all of a sudden I decide that I don't want that music to be playing and that I'm moving, I'm going to another room. What I really like about this service is if you look here, there's these icons. If I click on one of these, you'll see that there's not only a volume and a mute, but there's other little icons here. The first one, DSP. DSP allows me to equalize that one particular output device. So so in my living room, I have a Denon Home 350. It's an amazing product, but it's kind of tucked in a corner, and it may have a little too much bass. So I can go into here and use the parametric EQ and EQ the Denon Home 350 to optimize the sound, to customize it for me. So that's one thing I can do. The other thing that I can do is you'll see here, it's got this little icon here, looks like two arrows. One thing I hate is I'm doing a playlist, I'm playing something in my office, I'm really digging some playlists from Tidal. And now it's time for me to go to another room, from my office to my living room. And I still want to listen to that playlist, but I don't want to start the playlist from the beginning again. I just want to continue on. When I click this little arrow, it says, okay, you want to transfer from the guest room to where? And I can say, I want to transfer from the guest room to my Dragonfly, because I'm using it with my phone. And all of a sudden, bam, now that same song and that playlist jumps right over to my Dragonfly. I love that, because that really makes it a lot easier to take your music from room to room with you if you don't want to have everything playing. And then, of course, the last one here is just all of the settings you can do with that particular device. What did you name it? How do you want to fade between songs? Do you want to level the volume? By the way, any audio device, never turn on volume leveling or volume normalization, because you're compressing the file. You're taking the loud portions and the soft portions and squeezing them together. You're affecting its performance. So right now the Dragonfly is playing. And what you'll notice is right next to the artist name, there's this little purple icon. That icon, based on the color, will tell you the quality of the stream that you're using. So purple means basically uncompressed. Blue means it's been modified, neither upsampled or down converted based on the particular device. So if I click on that little purple icon, it'll show me that this is a FLAC file using, there it is, RAT, ROON Advanced Audio Transport. And it is playing back that song uncompressed. And the reason why it's 4416 is because that is from my own personal library. If I stop this and let's go over here and I go to Tidal here and let's go to Masters and let's pick R&B Masters. Play now. So now I am actually playing Tidal master quality audio. You notice now that the icon is blue. So what happens is somewhere down the line, it has been modified. So you see here, it is, the source is FLAC. It's all the way down till it gets to the MQA renderer. I probably have to go in there and make a modification to that. It says right there, unfold it, incorporates the file. So it shows me the quality of the file all the way down. So it's still very good. That's 4424. So it's a 44 kilohertz, 24-bit. And the MQA decoder bumps it up to 8824. So as you can see, you can actually follow your signal path all the way through. Wow.
Oh,
You
wait,
guys,
no, there's an important one. There's a very important one. Will
yes.
ROON clean up a dated, messy library?
Yes, it will organize. Like, my library is fairly messy, but I found it pretty organized. So there's been times where I would get the same album in my library like 3 times, but as I scroll through in the Roon, I haven't seen that. They do a pretty good job of organizing, looking through all the files and consolidating the artists. If you have 2 different versions of the same song, like I do, may have a CD quality version and a high res version. Then you may end up seeing that same song twice. But it does a pretty good job of organizing your content. This wants to know, you tell it where your music is located. If it's 3 different folders, tell them it's 3 different folders, and it will all make it look like it's one simplified location. So as I was saying, you need to have that core, that controller, and the output. And there's multiple ways that you can control our products. So if you have a HEOS enabled product, such as one of our Denon AVRs or Marantz AVRs or Pre-Pros, or you have a HEOS enabled speaker, there's multiple ways you can control it. First way, of course, is the HEOS app. A lot of times if I'm in a HEOS app and I connect and I select Spotify, it controls the device using the Spotify Connect. It makes basically Spotify wants you to use their controller. That's the way it is with every device that has Spotify. It will always kick you out and make you use Spotify Connect. And then now you also have the ROON interface for all of your particular devices. And of course, ROON also does AirPlay too. And I like the fact that one thing that I like, let's talk about differences between ROON and HEOS, the interface. One thing I like about the ROON interface is, like I said, it's a lot more visual than the HEOS interface, all the articles and all that type of stuff. I like so I like that. The next thing that I like is I like the fact that you have not only the mobile device control, but there's also a PC-based, a web-based controller, which is not available on HEOS. So I use a 48-inch 4K TV as my computer monitor in my office, and if I'm going to engage with all of this catalog of music and all these articles and stuff, I would much rather use that to read all of the stuff when I'm sitting in my office than my iPad or my tablet. So that's one thing that I like about ROON over HEOS. What I like about HEOS over ROON is there's more services available. So if I go into HEOS, you have all those additional music services from Amazon Music HD to Deezer to all sorts of other services that I have available there. So I like the huge amount of selection that's available in HEOS, but I like this, but the visual interface of ROON is quite nice.
Hey, Phil, I got a couple questions for you. Took them a while, but now they're coming. iTunes content is compatible. Is downloaded Apple Music files compatible too?
That is a good question. Unfortunately, I don't have Apple Music, so I can't really say yes or no. I just got a 6-month trial license, so I'm going to actually load it up and play with it. But pretty much my older files are available on here. I will check on the Apple Music. That's a good question. No one's ever asked me that yet. But I was.
There's another one.
Yes.
Is it possible to have album cover art, etc., on a TV screen via a Denon AVR?
When you're playing HEOS, you do get a basic cover on your display. If that is encoded into your metadata of your streaming file, so you can get that. But ROON doesn't even use that. Like a lot of times, instead of using that little embedded thing, it goes out and says, "Oh, based on the identifier on the file, it finds a prettier one." So you can get covers on your TV. Is it as visual as this? No, it's not. But you can get basic little clip style covers on there.
And then the last one, does ROON work off-site, i.e., you have the core at your main home and want to listen to it at another site? I'm going to say no.
Nope, it is an internal network type thing. So it's designed to be a closed network on a LAN, a local area network, and everything in one location. It's more like a whole house control type thing. That was one of the benefits of Plex, is I can, if I wanted to, I've been in Japan and played a movie off of my Plex server while I sat in the airport on my tablet. So that type of capabilities are there but that's not really a capability in Roon. It's more of a make your in-home experience better.
Will a Roon tile show up in the HEOS app where it will jump you to Roon?
No, it will not. But what happens is if I start a title file in Roon, I can see that those speakers are playing in HEOS. Okay, I can pause them in HEOS. So that's about the extent that you can do. Oh, by the way, I learned this the hard way. If I take if I start off with a file and I pick my Denon home speakers, and I'm playing my Denon home speakers, which are grouped together, and I select a Cobus file, which you don't have to worry about where you're at right now. When I go to HEOS, it shows those files those speakers as being offline, because HEOS does not support Cobus in its application. If they were playing a title song, and I open my HEOS app, or the last thing I played was a title thing, I will still see those speakers under HEOS, because I've had that happen where I go, why am I missing different devices in my house? And I realize, oh, I was playing a Cobus song on my media player in my office, which is why it is showing it as offline. So when I went back into Roon and brought up title or stopped that file, then the ND 8006 still comes back up. Okay, so that's something that happens that we want to point out. So if that ever happens to you, that is what's going on.
One more. Does Roon allow multiple platforms to be used at the same time, i.e. Sonos, Alexa, the Chromecast speakers, the Apple AirPlay 2 speakers, and group them together so they're all playing the same thing?
That is the next thing that I was going to cover. So let's talk about grouping real quick. So what ends up happening is I can group devices together. So when I hit, I'm playing something right now, and I click here, you'll see here it says group zones. And right now the Dragonfly is playing. When I hit group zones, select devices will come up. So things like computers can be grouped and with Roon ready devices like the Oppo Player. But there's 8 zones that cannot be grouped, because those zones are not running the Roon's software, operating software. They are running either AirPlay or Chromecast. So for example, if I go here to my Denon home and I hit group zones, I can group those 3 zones together because they're all running AirPlay 2. But I can also group my Apple TVs and my DMP 800, my Denon, as well as my AVR 8805, because all of those devices are running AirPlay. So I can't group my Apple TV with my Oppo because they're communicating 2 different ways with the system. That's something maybe they'll add later, but right now that is not the way that it's laid out. A few other things we want to point out, and we've already talked about this. There's you'll notice there's a lot of different, like we talked about, a lot of different options for your PC. Is just how are you connected to your PC, and which are using the media board, the standard audio outputs from the PC, or do you want to send it out of asynchronous? That's what all of those different things list as. Okay, and of course, Roon tested and AirPlay devices are listed under the network products.
Hey, Phil, can you expand on the NAS drives?
Okay.
Bosco raised the good point that not all NAS drives will support Roon.
That is correct. Roon has a recommendation for NAS drives you should use, because the NAS drive has to have enough processing power to actually support running the program and being able to distribute music to multiple zones. So if you go to their website, if you want to run a NAS drive, they will give you a list of NAS drives that they recommend, and most of those NAS drives are pretty beefy. But the nice thing about a NAS drive is they're designed to run 24/7, and you don't have to worry about someone taking your laptop away and turning off basically your multi-zone music. So if you go to Roon, there's a whole list of NAS drives and recommendations on which ones you should use.
You know, when like I hear NAS drive and I think, oh, I can just go buy Western Digital My Cloud and I'm off and running, and that's not the case.
It's not the case. You got to there's a certain level of NAS drive that just require. And the reason why Roon makes a little player called a nucleus, and it's a core device. It doesn't really have any memory, but you plug memory into it, like, you know, you connect it to your hard drives, or it accesses other material off of a NAS drive, like a Western Digital Cloud, one of those little guys. The reason why I developed that is they want to make sure that that device start off as a Intel NUC, a little tiny device. It actually looks like this guy here. And basically what they did was they wanted to make a more reliable version that ran, instead of it running as a program on a Windows operating system, that it ran a direct program. So those are kind of nice too. Those run about over $1,000, between $1,200 to $2,400. Jim was looking at upgrading his option. And Jim, what were we just talking about yesterday about ways you can actually get good
micro PC?
Yes.
Using a micro PC or an old laptop or whatever.
Yeah, I actually went on Amazon and we were looking. You can find a micro PC or those little office mini PCs that actually will fit into a rack. They are designed to be mounted vertical or horizontally, and it will fit easily into a rack. And those you can find Core i5 with Windows operating system on them already. We were seeing them for like $300. So if that's another option. By the time you got a NAS drive, you could probably buy one of those little PCs and run it as and run the core on that. And not only, it'll also act as a NAS drive for all of your other devices if you wanted to do that. So that's one thing that you can do too if you're looking for a solution where you only have one laptop and you want to be able to, you don't want that laptop or to always be on in this particular thing. You can do maybe an inexpensive desktop PC or an inexpensive laptop. Most laptops that are available you can buy right now, regardless of the price, are more than powerful enough to run multiple zones of Roon. When you start getting it past like 6 to 8 zones simultaneously playing, or 6 to 8 streams simultaneously playing, is when you start having problems. So we talked about the signal path and how you can see what quality is being played back at that particular time. And we also talked about the fact that you can actually go in and custom equalize each of your zones. You can do this with HEOS as well, but it's not a parametric. It's more of a simple bass and treble. So if you really are geeky and you want to go in there and dial out a hump at 67 Hertz, you can actually do that using the DSP processing in the Roon system. Roon tested versus Roon ready. So Cyanited products are Roon tested, which means Cyanited and Roon Labs work together to ensure maximum compatibility. When I hit start, it starts. When I hit stop, it stops. If I can, and they make sure that it works properly. So we are Roon tested. We communicate via AirPlay 2 and give you up to CD quality sound. If the file is above CD quality, it will be down converted to CD quality. That is how Roon tested works. That is a limitation of AirPlay 2. There's a huge amount of Denon as well as Marantz devices that are Roon tested. So if it's pretty much a newer AVR or a newer network player or wireless speaker or integrated amp or network amp, sorry, that supports AirPlay 2, whether it's from Denon or from Marantz, it you are ready to go. So there needs to be a Denon or Marantz AirPlay 2 compatible HEOS device, which is why there's one of the HEOS soundbars, the DHT-S516H, that has AirPlay 2 capability, and it is also supported. The other thing that we want to point out is the fact that while I didn't put it on the list, because it supports AirPlay 2 and Chromecast, Google Chromecast, many of our Polk and Definitive soundbars support Chromecast. So those can also be added and be controlled. And so they're basically ROON available as well. So you have all of the Denon and all of the Marantz AirPlay 2 enabled HEOS devices, and any soundbar speaker that is available through Polk Definitive, or that is Chromecast, can also be part of this particular system. So we don't talk much about the Chromecast speaker stuff, but there are some soundbars that we support that, as long as it has Chromecast, Magnify Minis, and the new Definitive Studio Advances, those types of things. Those are also can be used in the Chromecast family. There's also what are called ROON Ready. And ROON Ready runs, like I said, ROON's RAT software. It runs their protocol as the brain of to determine the music distribution. ROON Advanced Audio Transfer Port. It's their streaming technology built into the device. And currently, it is not supported by. Let me fix that, because I want to make sure you understand that I made a mistake. It is currently not supported. Okay, so it is currently not supported, but they are looking into doing it. If you look at HEOS, we have that application has grown. We continue to add services, but it's all based on capabilities, engineering resources, and demand. Okay. The big thing that's really cool is all of these different devices from different manufacturers, which are either ROON tested or ROON ready, which is a nice thing. If you look, there's a tremendous amount of manufacturers here. It's a benefit to you and to any client you're working at before, if somebody was start off with one type of system, they were pretty much stuck. So for example, if I had Sonos in the bedroom and I was like, man, I really would like to put a HEOS downstairs in the living room. I'm already kind of in that HEOS, that Sonos system, so I might as well stay there. This allows you to actually have all these different devices. Now, I can't group all of these things together to play back as one synchronized thing, but if I have a Sonos upstairs and a HEOS in the kitchen, they're never going to be played together anyway. So that doesn't really matter. But being able to have the flexibility of putting maybe a HEOS speaker in the living room, dining room, and kitchen, and then take that Sonos and toss it in the garage, that is a nice capability. So it understands all your gear. It acts like a translator. So it makes it easy for you to use a variety of different devices and control them as different types of zones. So that is a nice thing. If you are a consumer, it's $119 a year, or $699 for a lifetime license. And like I said, that license runs one core. You can have the core program on multiple devices, but you can only have one core active at a time. And of course, consumers can get a 14-day trial that's available for any user so they can see if they like it. And there's also specialized opportunities for dealers and their sales teams for them to be able to get a license at basically for free, so they can experiment it and also show it to their customers in their shops. But right now, this is the pricing. If you are a dealer and you're interested in getting a ROON license for a shop front or for demonstration, please talk to your reps and they will talk to me, and we can provide them with the information that is on how to actually do that. Okay, once you get the software, once you get your license, you're gonna have to go to ROON Labs and download the software, the ROON server software. for the core, as well as the ROON player software for any PC that you would like to use. If you have a mobile device, you need to go to that particular app store, the Apple Store or the Google Play Store, and download the controller app for that particular device. All of the HEOS devices with AirPlay 2 built in, AVRs, network receivers, stereo receivers, Denon Home, and of course the DHT S516 soundbar are all compatible, as well as any Chromecast enabled Polk and Definitive soundbar as well. The older HEOS branded speakers are not supported. So the HEOS 1s, 3s, 5s, and 7s are not supported because they do not support AirPlay 2. There is a solution for that. Not really a solution, but there's kind of a poor man's workaround that I used. I had bought a couple of those Chromecast audio devices before they were discontinued, and I have this HEOS drive here that runs two zones in my house right now. So what I did was I took those unused Chromecast audios and I plugged them into the back of that HEOS drive. When I'm using HEOS, I just open the app and I can play stuff in my garage off of HEOS. When I want to make that drive part of the ROON ecosystem, what I do is I go into the HEOS app and I switch from the unit internal inputs, back inputs, and now I bring up that Chromecast to actually play in the garage. So it says, so the Chromecast is like, it literally says garage and then garage ROON. So I actually have both of those as a capability. So you can use that, you could take that drive and retrofit. So if you have any other Chromecast enabled device that has an audio output on it, a puck, or if you're lucky enough like me to buy one of the little ROON, the Chromecast audios before they were discontinued, you can plug those into the back of a HEOS 3, 5, or 7, and then you can add that to the ROON system as well. Any questions, Jim?
Yes. The gentleman has an old model Marantz SR6006 and an NA7004 with only AirPlay, and they both work with ROON. Well,
That's
his
cool.
question is this: can you group AirPlay and AirPlay 2
together
products, yes, in one group? And I know that AirPlay 2 was created so that you could group Apple products together.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Not really a question, but because there's no high res support via the Apple AirPlay 2 products, $700 is a lot of dough to lay out with no high res support, right?
Yes. For the Denon and Marantz, currently, yes. But what you're laying out for is some people are willing to do it for the organization capabilities, and all of the other ways of being able to organize and have a more visual look to your system. And like I said, there are ways that if you want to utilize, most people, if they look in their rack, there may be something in their rack like an NVIDIA Shield or like I have an NVIDIA Shield or Chromecast or Dragonfly or something else that can be connected, like my Oppo Blu-ray player, which can be connected, which is already connected to your AV8805. So not only do I have 8805's internal zone, I can still, if I play Oppo, guess what it's going to play out of? My AV8805. So you're still going to get high res quality there as well. Most likely there's something in that rack that is ROON ready, or Chromecast, which is going to give you high res playback.
Thank you, Phil. Also, we learned earlier today that eventually the lifetime subscription is going to go away. We don't know, there's no date, but it's going to leave, and it will only be available as yearly type of a setup.
So get it while you can, because like I said, most of the time it's just And like I said, it keeps evolving. If you want to compile, utilize multiple services or multiple different devices from multiple different that utilize multiple different communications from one location, then ROON is the best option. If you like the fact that it really organizes you have a large personal library and you want that organized with streaming services. So if I want Bob Dylan, it's just going to play Bob Dylan. Doesn't matter where I get it from. Then ROON is a great option. If you want a more visual way of interfacing with your music, such as like I said, like we talked about before, the Discover and the articles and all of that stuff, then ROON is a great option. If you're not if that isn't the things that you're looking into, you can always go back and utilize, and that's why we say there's multiple things. Our goal is just to provide you with a variety of options. And you may look at this and say, you know what? I like the fact that there's so many more services on HEOS. I'm already in the HEOS family, and I like being able to use my older HEOS 1, 3, 5s, and 7s with my new products and have high res on everything. Then you may want to you may be more of a HEOS person. At Sound United, our goal is to make sure that our products, our Denon and Marantz products, can be interfaced and used in the way that you want to use them. So whether or not you want to talk to your Amazon box and say, play this in the kitchen, or I want to utilize my HEOS app because I like the way that it is organized, and I like having this much of a selection. Like for example, if I had music server on my HEOS app, those are my 3 music servers that I have access to, which are also, if you look here, the Media PC and the Plex are both under the Media PC and the Plex server under Shield are both under my Plex, and it sees that. And then I have a HAP S1, which is a Sony hard drive based music server, and I have access to that. So both services offer a huge amount of flexibility. It's just how do you want to control your system and how do you want to interact? There is no right or wrong. It's just what you or your customer desires. What I like about HEOS is the DDA converters in that 8805 is spectacular. There's nothing, pretty much, there's very few things that it cannot decode. So if I get a new service or I want to add a new functionality to HEOS, I basically update the application, because all I'm doing with this HEOS app is I'm telling that receiver to go to Spotify and find this song, which is located at this URL. So if I come up with if they decide they want to add another service or more capabilities, if I upgrade the app, a lot of times it upgrades just about everything else down the pipeline. AirPlay 2 was just a hardware thing. But a lot of the other services we can continue to add. Because I have, like I was mentioning, we were joking that I have an old iPad, and that old iPad will still run the HEOS app. It still works beautifully in the HEOS application, but I can't even update my BBC and my CNN news applications. It won't even update it. It won't even let me update Apple News. So basically that iPad is now just a really, really good HEOS controller. So that's the only thing to run on it right now, and it still runs as good as it did as a new piece. And that iPad is 10 years old, and it's still usable. All right. So any other questions, Jim?
Here's this is a great question, and you can answer it or I can. Does Amazon High Res stream directly to HEOS through the app? Yes, it does.
Exactly. So that's one of the things I like about Amazon. So if I go here right now and I go to Amazon Music playlist, a lot of times I can bring up all of my services. I will tell you that if you're using these particular, if you're using Amazon Music HD, make sure that the app has been upgraded. So right now, this is Ultra HD Classic Rock. And if I pick something like, I always use let's use, if I hit the Beatles, play now in the dining room. So this is now playing in my dining room downstairs. So this is playing in my dining room downstairs, and you'll see that right below, you'll see a little Ultra HD right below Come Together. If I hit info, it'll tell me that is 9624. So I'm playing high res directly from Amazon Music HD. Things like it can go up to 19224, which you can't buy a higher res file than what are available on. They have the on Amazon Music HD. They have the largest catalog of high res, and this is not MQA. This is straight up FLAC files. Now, of course, you got to make sure that if you do multiple zones of this, make sure you have a good Wi-Fi system, because I am not casting this to that speaker. Each speaker has to go out and get this file, and then they all kind of count down and sync together and play. Okay, so yes, it is a great way of doing it. One thing that I want to point out: whenever you set these a HEOS device up, let me give you a couple of tips. If I go into the device and it says My Devices, if I select the device, like my theater, it's going to ask you the quality. Set the quality too high. A lot of times it defaults to low, not low, like normal or medium, because it's trying to save bandwidth. So the first thing you want to do is set that not from normal to high, which means send me the highest file quality possible. The next thing you need to do is you need to go to the particular music app. It is going to ask you under settings, what quality do you want? So see here, it says streaming audio quality. You need to set that to best available. All right. So that's also Tidal or any other music service you have. You need to go in and tell the device that itself, the HEOS device or the receiver, that you want to play it, that you want it to utilize the highest stream possible, and then you have to go in and tell the service to provide the highest quality possible. Mobile data, I have it set to best available. That is a data killer on your phone. That's not really necessary when I'm on the road, but because I have a Dragonfly, I have it set to that. But most of the time, your Wi-Fi, set it to the best available.
There are a lot of things coming from ROON, apparently.
Mm-hmm.
That we were told there's stuff coming, but they can't talk about it yet this year.
Yes. So.
And the other thing I would say is that just because we are ROON tested now doesn't mean that we won't go to ROON ready at some point in the future. And when we do that, the limitations of AirPlay 2 will evaporate.
Exactly. So, like I said, we start off as a ROON tested device. We have enough processing power. It's just the engineering resources and other things that we have to work through. And a lot of it has nothing to do with processing. It has to do with MQA licensing and all the other madness that we have to deal with as a manufacturer. But we realize that if we can make it better, we're always pretty good at making it better. Okay. So any other questions?
Oh, there was one about what's the library of high res like on Amazon, which I already answered. I found the library to be quite good.
Yeah, they have the largest library. I mean, the guy's the richest man in the world. You can get whatever he wants, so they have a pretty large library of files and things like that.
I would also say that the dining room that Phil was playing, the Abbey Road, the Beatles' new version, high res and stereo version of Abbey Road, is spectacular.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, it's amazing. It makes you go through and explore music. I will admit there's something that I've noticed about using ROON compared to other music devices, other music services. A lot of times, because there's so many files, I get into a lot of musical ADD. I start off with one track, and then I think I play it for like half the song or maybe the full song. And instead of playing the entire album, I'll jump to something else. And then I'll jump to something else. And then I'll jump to something else on most services. I have found myself, because of the ROON thing, playing more of the album, because I'll start off with playing Legend or playing an album, Chicago, and then you start reading the notes and you start getting interested. Oh, the third song has this guy playing on it. And normally you would have jumped off of it. You end up staying there. So I find myself playing more of the entire catalog, more of the entire record, and being more, and some of these records you need to play them from beginning to end. And it kind of, all this additional rich media makes it more engaging. You're more likely to do it.
Phil, can you go through, not just with your iPad with Apple, but also with your computer, on how to, so people that, you know, have Windows, and also if you've got an Android device laying around, how do you pull up the lyrics?
The lyrics. So right now, this one is playing Ashley Standard. If I click on her, if I click on it, the lyrics will come up. So normally if I click on the artist itself, like the song itself, if the lyrics exist, the lyrics will appear on my PC. Let me see here. If I go back here and we hit escape, let me go back here. Let me go back into my iPad here. And we go to ROON. Get rid of that. Yeah, if you just click on directly on the song title. So right here, if I click right here on the thing, it will bring up the lyrics. I mean, on this device here, there's these 4 little dots, and when I hit those 4 little dots, come here, you. Really? So the little 4 little dots. If I hit those 4 little dots, you'll see right there it says View Lyrics, and if I hit View Lyrics, it comes up this way. So it doesn't scroll on the Android on this particular one, but there are the lyrics right there. And then I can blow them up to different sizes. So it's these 4 little dots right here. Share lyrics or view lyrics. Okay. So that's what that looks like.
Can you do it on your desktop, or did you already do that?
Yeah, the desktop was easy. The desktop, you just go in, and just like the Apple device, all I have to do is click on the artist's name, and it comes right up.
You mean the song title?
The song title, yes. Or or I can go here and hit View Lyrics this way as well. But it's that little, you just click on the song title right here, and it comes right up. Okay. All right. So you guys have a lot of questions. We always go a little longer than we normally do, but that's a good thing. That means you guys are actually engaged and interested. I would suggest downloading the 14 days. Even if you don't have title, download the 14 days, get the free little title trial, and play with it, and then see if it's worth it to you. And it makes it easier for you to explain the benefit, even if you don't continue to use it, to customers who are looking into it. Oh, by the way, make sure you subscribe to our Cyanide Training YouTube channel. If you go to YouTube and you type in Cyanide Training, please subscribe. We're going to start adding a lot more content along the way. So thank you guys very much for your time, and I will talk to you soon.